Let me out. Take me to the hospital quickly. My husband locked me in the garden shed when labor pains began late at night. Rubbing my aching belly, I was filled with anxiety, fearing that the baby would arrive any moment. Suddenly, screams echoed from our home. Peering through the gap in the shed, I witnessed an unbelievable scene. What's happening? Later, I learned the shocking truth, and anger surged within me. I am Jessica, 30 years old. My husband, Guy, is 3 years older and a senior colleague at the same company. We had an office romance and got married. After retiring, I started working as a part-time office worker in my neighborhood. My younger sister, Serena, lives nearby and often visits after work. Her presence was comforting during my new life filled with uncertainties. My husband's daily phrases became a routine. I might have to work overtime today and I'm heading out. He consistently returned home late. Having worked at the same company, I understood the demands of his job. Although I felt lonely, my main concern was his well-being. I reassured myself that it wouldn't last forever. Despite my worries, my husband's return time kept getting later. He even worked on weekends, leaving me waiting at home. I considered asking former colleagues about the situation, but I wondered how Guy would feel if he found out. Ultimately, I continued waiting for his return every day. And then, my husband's concerning behavior gradually increased during this time. I managed our household finances, and gave my husband an allowance. Although he occasionally went out for social events, I always provided him with enough money each month. One day,
Jessica, I've used up all my allowance. Can you add some more?
I was taken aback. But it hasn't even been half a month. What did you spend it on? Guy always seemed to run out of money, and whenever I asked about how he spent it, he evaded the question. I can't give you more unless you tell me properly.
Okay.
He was seemingly accepting my response. However, the next day, when I saw the credit card bill, I couldn't believe my eyes. Why was it so high? Even when I confronted him with the details, he just apologized without revealing anything substantial. He doesn't share any crucial information. At this rate, we won't be able to save for the future. This situation not only strained our relationship but also added financial worries. I wondered if we could continue as a couple in the long run. The worst thoughts crossed my mind. Perhaps my husband was having an affair. Yet, I lacked the courage to confront him directly. The fear of investigating and being proven right paralyzed me. At that moment, my sister Serena visited. As soon as she saw my face, she asked,
Do you have something troubling you?
I hesitated but finally confessed. Actually, Guy's behavior seems suspicious. Serena's eyes narrowed.
You don't mean he's cheating, do you?
I'm not sure yet, but I've been thinking it might be possible. My uncertainty made my words falter. Serena didn't mince hers.
Men who cheat are despicable. You should consider divorce.
Despite her stern tone, I appreciated her concern. Thank you. Talking to you has eased my mind a bit. She assured me.
If anything happens, feel free to ask. I'll even give your husband a piece of my mind.
I smiled and replied, I'll keep that in mind. As she left, I sensed a hint of relief in her expression. Although I still don't have concrete evidence of infidelity, I decided to observe a little longer. Just then, I fell ill and went to the hospital, where I discovered that I was pregnant. My husband's response was,
Oh, I see. That's good.
But he seemed to avoid eye contact. I asked. Aren't you more excited?
No, it's not like that. I'm looking forward to it.
Despite his words, something felt off. He was different from before, and I couldn't shake that feeling. I repeatedly tried to discuss matters with Guy, but he kept brushing it off with excuses like, "I'm busy, let's talk later." Time slipped away, leaving me uncertain about what to do. To distract myself from the anxiety, I focused on preparing for our unborn child. And time flew by. I was already in my final month of pregnancy. Despite our ongoing communication issues, the anticipation of meeting our child soon filled me with excitement. On that particular day, a typhoon was forecasted, and the strong winds and rain battered our area. Feeling my belly tighten, I called out to Guy before resting alone in the bedroom. As midnight approached, the pain intensified, and it seemed labor had finally begun. "Hey, can you take me to the hospital? My labor has started," I said, gently cradling my abdomen. Guy, who had been looking at his phone, muttered.
Seriously?
He sprang up, grabbed my arm, and hurried toward the front door. I tried to calm him down, saying, "You don't need to rush. The baby won't arrive immediately." But his expression remained stern. Without hesitation, he led me outside and pushed me into the storage room in the garden, slamming the door shut.
"Stay here,"
he commanded, his face intense. "Wait, what are you doing? Let me out. Take me to the hospital." I shouted desperately, unable to comprehend what was happening. But there was no response from my husband, and his footsteps faded into the distance. What should I do? I clutched my aching belly, immobilized for a while. Yet, I knew the baby was in danger if I stayed here. Suppressing my anxiety, I pondered how to escape this place. That's right. Maybe. I peered outside through the small window in the storage room. To my surprise, I saw Guy in the living room, chatting amiably with a woman. The curtains were wide open, revealing everything even in the late hour. Wait, who is that person? My husband had locked me in the storage room while entertaining this woman inside. Was this irrefutable evidence of his infidelity? Despite our imminent child's arrival, I felt lost, facing the harsh reality without any way to call for help. And then it happened. From my home, I heard a woman scream. What's going on now? I snapped back to reality and looked into the living room through the window. There, not only Guy but also the other woman's face became unmistakably clear. Wait, why? Is this a joke? My muttered voice felt hollow as shock and abdominal pain blurred my consciousness, almost causing me to faint. How much time passed? Eventually, the storage room door opened, and someone rescued me. The next day, I safely gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Learning the astonishing truth, an indescribable anger surged within me. I'll never forgive the person. And so, I began preparing for retribution. A week later, my husband and I visited my parents' home. My father welcomed us, saying,
"Welcome. We've been waiting."
My parents and sister Serena greeted us with smiles. "Dad, Mom, meet your first grandchild. Hold her." In my arms, the baby slept peacefully. On that day, I proudly introduced our child, having just been discharged from the hospital. Everyone was smitten with the baby, especially my mother, whose eyes remained teary with joy. As I observed this heartwarming scene, I sat up straight in a chair, ready for the next chapter of my life. Today, I have something important to share. It might take a while, but will you listen?
What's going on? Why the sudden formality?
My parents' once smiling faces grew serious as they looked at me. I proceeded to recount the night during the typhoon when Guy locked me in the storage room. My father was taken aback.
What? Why would he do such a thing?
My mother remained speechless, covering her mouth with both hands. Meanwhile, Guy kept his head down, refusing to speak. My father demanded,
What's your intention, Guy? Speak up.
Even my sister Serena chimed in.
Exactly. Treating a pregnant woman like that is despicable. Maybe you should consider leaving this man?
Despite the collective condemnation, Guy remained silent. I explained. Through the small window in the storage room, I saw another woman inside our house, and Guy was talking to her. My father's anger flared.
Are you cheating? You. How could you do this?
He lunged at Guy, but I quickly intervened, stopping him in his tracks. Listen carefully, Dad. It might take a while to explain. But when I heard a woman scream, everything changed.
See? It's definitely tied to infidelity.
His face turned crimson, and his fists trembled, clearly enraged by the harm done to his daughter. Given that I initially thought the same way, it's understandable. But I continued in a calm, composed voice. But when I saw the woman's face, I couldn't make sense of it anymore.
What do you mean?
Both my parents exchanged confused glances. You see, the woman Guy was talking to that day was Serena. My father's confusion deepened.
What? How is that possible?
It seems that my parents became even more confused, glancing back and forth between my sister and my husband's faces. Serena remained silent, avoiding eye contact. My father demanded answers, slamming the table.
Tell us the reason.
Finally, Guy broke his silence.
Actually, Serena was threatening me.
His eyes met my parents', revealing the shocking truth.
Look at this.
My husband placed a photo on the table. As soon as my father picked it up, he trembled.
What's going on? Explain.
My father glared at Guy, his anger palpable. And no wonder, the photo showed Guy and Serena walking closely together. I calmed my father and urged him to listen to the whole story.
This is from when I helped a drunk Serena. The photo doesn't show it, but my colleagues were there too.
Guy explained. My father hesitated.
Is that true?
Yes. If you can confirm it, you'll understand right away. So please believe me.
Guy's serious expression seemed to calm my father a bit. As it turns out, shortly after our marriage, Guy encountered Serena on the way home from a drinking party in the bustling city. Serena was so intoxicated that her friends struggled to manage her. Guy, considering her his sister-in-law, extended a helping hand.
The truth is, after marrying Jessica, Serena confessed her feelings to me.
Guy continued.
Of course, I firmly rejected her each time.
My parents were puzzled by my husband's thorough explanation of the events leading up to this point, as he spoke while looking at them. According to him, Serena, who had feelings for Guy, seemed to have fallen in love at first sight when she saw my husband at the family gathering. This photo too was taken by a friend who knows your feelings for fun, right? Ignoring the question, Serena remained silent, but I pressed on. And then you used this blatantly suspicious photo as leverage to threaten Guy, right? My husband pushed my sister away, claiming that everything was baseless. He even tried to discuss her feelings and the photo with me immediately. However, Serena had pushed him into a corner, saying things like,
If you won't be with me, I'll end my life.
or,
If you tell Jessica, I'll drag her down too.
although he didn't take her seriously, he couldn't risk any harm coming to me. You exploited Guy's kindness, acting selfishly. I told Serena.
So what?
She finally looked up, smiling wryly.
Maybe Guy wasn't entirely indifferent?
She suggested. Guy retorted.
No way. It was pure agony.
Since then, he'd been at Serena's beck and call, summoned after work daily, unable to return home. But that wasn't all. Guy's perpetual financial struggles were due to Serena coercing him into buying things. You manipulated him, making him late and reckless with money, all to create suspicion of infidelity and provoke conflict between us. I explained.
Well, what's going on?
She pretended to listen to my concerns. Her words, "Why don't you divorce Guy?" were actually heartfelt, and deep down, she was probably smirking, knowing that things were going her way.
Isn't this just your paranoia?
She chuckled, crossing her legs on the sofa. Perhaps she believed she was the chosen one, looking down on me with a triumphant air. I retorted. Guy won't come to you, no matter what. He's only following your instructions to keep me safe.
That's impossible.
She stood up, confronting Guy with anger.
Hey, Guy. She's lying, right?
It's true.
No way. Didn't you fall for me?
I've never said I liked you. There's a 0% chance I ever will.
His tone was flat and resolute as he pushed Serena away. She muttered something about how awful it was and collapsed right there. After observing my sister's distress, she turned her gaze toward me.
Enough with the drama. There's no evidence that I threatened Guy, right? He could be lying, couldn't he?
Even at this point, she defiantly fired back.
That's impossible.
Despite his struggle, I restrained him with my hand. Then how about this? I said, pulling out my smartphone and playing a certain video. On the screen, Guy and my sister were captured in a heated exchange inside the house during the time I was locked in the storage room. Serena's voice echoed.
When will you break up with Jessica? Marry me already.
And then, chillingly,
Where is she? I'll make her Miss Gary. Even if the baby is born, I'll end it myself.
those were the chilling words she uttered, one after another. Isn't this considered a threat? I challenged.
It's surveillance. Violating my rights like this.
My sister continued to argue with me, her voice rising. This footage is from the surveillance camera I set up for the baby. It happened to capture this. I explained. In the midst of labor pains, I hadn't had time to record it, but later, I remembered the camera and checked. The evidence was there.
Baby, what's the big deal?
She grabbed my arm, shaking me vigorously, frustration etched on her face.
If only there was no child, Guy would be mine.
Actually, on that evening, my sister and I exchanged emails. I messaged her, nervous about giving birth soon. She replied,
Looking forward to it. Cheering you on.
but in reality, my email had pushed my sister's irritation to its peak. Frustrated with the unchanging relationship with Guy, she sent him a message.
saying everything to Jessica. I'm coming over now.
Worried about my safety, my husband, unable to hide me elsewhere, quickly locked me in the storage room. When my sister arrived, he ensured she wouldn't harm me physically by claiming I was already at the hospital. After Serena left, it was Guy who helped me, taking me to the hospital. Thinking back, if I had screamed for help during that moment, both my unborn child and I might have been in danger. I've already told him everything I witnessed, and Guy told me everything about until then. My sister clenched her fist, trembling with anger.
This is ridiculous. Just because you met him first doesn't mean you can act all high and mighty. Even though you're not more beautiful than me.
She hurled hurtful words at me.
Anyway, I'm the one suitable for him. Deep down, Guy must feel the same way.
Are you even aware of what you're saying?
Shut up.
Serena glared at me, but then she turned her tear-filled eyes toward my husband.
Hey, Guy. It's not too late. Divorce this woman.
My sister pressed on relentlessly. Despite her advances, Guy involuntarily stepped back. I too felt a chilling fear from her resentful expression.
I'll say it as many times as needed. My wife is Jessica.
Guy asserted.
But why stay with her? There's no point clinging to her. If you want a child, I'll bear it for you.
Serena pleaded, her hair disheveled, desperately clinging to Guy. Was this the true face of my once gentle, adorable sister? Filled with helplessness, I intervened between Guy and my sister. From now on, our family of 3 will find happiness. Don't interfere, I said coldly.
You're annoying. You're not even part of this conversation. Seriously, just disappear.
Serena persisted, pushing me away.
Enough.
Finally, our silent father raised his voice.
Serena, you're truly pathetic. We're cutting ties with you as our child. Leave now.
Dad, are you kidding?
She probably never imagined hearing those words. Growing frantic, she paced the room, scratching her head. We want nothing to do with you anymore. I don't even consider you my sister, I declared.
No. Absolutely not. Is this okay with both Mom and Dad? And I'm cuter than Jessica, right?
Desperate, she clung to Dad, but he avoided eye contact.
The decision is final.
Hey. Jessica, say something to Dad and Mom. It's all your fault.
Fed up with Serena's arrogance, I intervened. We're not just cutting ties, we'll file a restraining order against you, I said coldly.
What? You can't.
For the safety of our child, it's necessary, I replied. Tears streamed down her face.
Jessica, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I'll be all alone if I can't see everyone.
But given everything, forgiveness was impossible. I can't trust you anymore. Reflect on your actions alone. When I pushed her away, my sister cried out like a child and collapsed from her knees. Afterward, we went through legal proceedings, and a restraining order was issued against Serena. As a precaution, we decided to move to a new place. Our parents also severed ties with her, and despite her repeated attempts to seek forgiveness by visiting my parents' home, she was always turned away. Over time, she stopped coming, and now no one knows where my sister is. Meanwhile, the 3 of us live peacefully in our new home. With more to protect, my husband works harder than ever. And I'm committed to supporting Guy firmly in the days ahead.
How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.
Happy birthday, Dad.
That day was my husband's birthday. We had a small celebration for him, who always supported our family. Right after that, we received the news that his company had gone bankrupt. It'll be okay. We'll figure it out, I earnestly reassured him, who was feeling down. I truly believed that we could overcome any adversity if we had love.
I'm going for a walk.
Those were the last words he said to us. After that, he never returned home and vanished into the sea, leaving behind a large debt for me and our daughter. My husband Diego and I had been together since our student days. I became a nursery school teacher, and he started his own investment company. Our paths diverged significantly, but we got married a few years after graduation and had our daughter Isabella, and 4 years passed. We were a close-knit family of 3. That day was his birthday. Our daughter and I made a homemade cake and prepared a small gift to celebrate him.
Happy birthday, Dad.
Oh, thank you.
He was very happy with our daughter's birthday wishes and the watch I gave him. I never doubted that such happiness would continue forever.
Not yet. This is the critical moment. Don't rush.
A few hours after the birthday party, when our daughter had fallen asleep, he was busy handling calls from work. I had seen him looking serious while on the phone before. He was probably discussing work, but I didn't understand the workings of an investment company.
Why can't you do as you're told? You incompetent.
After several exchanges on the phone, I heard him yell in frustration. I opened the study door to find him slumped over, his shoulders sagging. What's wrong? You're being too loud. You'll wake Isabella.
Sorry. I failed in a deal.
He muttered without looking at me. What? What does that mean? Are you okay?
No, it's bad. The company is going to collapse.
When I heard those words, it felt like the air had changed for a moment. I had heard from him before that an investment company could move an eye-popping amount of money overnight. If such a company were to go bankrupt, I could imagine what would happen. But strangely, I didn't feel pessimistic. It'll be okay. We'll figure it out. So I answered without hesitation. I wasn't ignoring the thought of how we would live or whether I could support us with just my income. But I was confident that we could overcome any hardship if we were together.
Thank you. I'm going for a walk.
What? But. He looked glum, understandably shocked by the company's impending bankruptcy. But I was reluctant to leave him alone at such a time.
I'll be fine. I'll be back soon.
Okay. Be careful. I reluctantly agreed to his outing, but my anxiety wouldn't go away. Please, come back. I beg you. I watched him leave, making him promise, but he quietly closed the door without responding. Looking back, that was my biggest mistake. I should have forced him to stay. What did you say just now? The police contacted me the morning after he left. We found shoes that appear to belong to your husband and what seems to be a suicide note. When they told me that, my mind went blank. The location was a scenic spot overlooking the sea in our hometown. But it was also a notorious cliff where people frequently jumped to their deaths. The police contacted me based on the personal belongings he left behind. Despite an earnest search, bad weather set in from that day, and the sea became rough, so the police quickly gave up looking for him. I wanted to search for him myself, but with a young daughter to care for, there was little I could do.
Where did Daddy go?
He'll be back. He promised. I muttered to myself, holding my anxious daughter. Why didn't I stop him then? Thinking that made my heart feel like it would break. But more bad things followed, piling on us who had suddenly lost our family. Please, go away. You can't just show up and say that. My daughter has nothing to do with this. Debt collectors started coming to our house daily, demanding I repay my husband's debts. It turned out that his company had already been in trouble for months before he disappeared. He had apparently borrowed money from shady sources. They claimed I was a guarantor for his debts, but I had no memory of agreeing to that. Debt collectors hounded us relentlessly, ignoring our mourning, and I was mentally cornered. They even showed up at my workplace, forcing me to quit. I had to leave the nursery school where I had worked since I was a new graduate because I couldn't let the children and parents see me dealing with debt collectors. Without him, everything about our lives changed. If my parents hadn't taken us in, I might have ended up taking my own life and my daughter's. With help from a lawyer and a judicial scrivener, it took several months to settle the debt issue. But the series of events deeply scarred both me and my daughter, and healing those wounds wasn't easy. Still, I couldn't stay down forever, so I started moving forward for my daughter's sake. 3 years later, after finding a new job in my hometown, our lives finally stabilized. My daughter, now 7, grew up to be a sweet child, made lots of friends at school, and was happy. I was also fortunate to have good mom friends, and our lives gradually improved. A trial session at the new sports facility? One day, a mom friend invited me to such an event. The large, clean facility had both sports and hot spring facilities, with a daycare center, so we could enjoy the services without worry. I didn't have any particular hobbies outside of work, but I thought it might be good to exercise deliberately for a change. That night, while preparing dinner, I glanced at the TV and saw a local program featuring the facility. I thought it was perfect timing and stopped what I was doing to watch. A man appeared on the show, being interviewed with his elegant wife and child, as a successful businessman who had established the sports facility with a daycare center. It was just an ordinary scene, but I couldn't take my eyes off the man I had never seen before. Why do I feel like I've met this person somewhere before? Like he's been close to me all along, like he's familiar. At first, it was just a slight unease. But when the man on TV started a certain gesture, I felt a chill run through my entire body. Diego. I involuntarily muttered. No matter how much our lives changed over the 3 years, I never forgot him. I saw a resemblance to my missing husband in the man on TV. Diego had a unique habit. When he was nervous, anxious, or lying, he would fiddle with the nail on his right middle finger. That's why his finger was always noticeably ragged. The man's distinctive habit and finger shape were unmistakable. But the world is vast. Maybe it's just a coincidence. I considered that. The man's face was different from my husband's, and his name was introduced as Kyle, so there was a possibility it was just a look-alike. However, the timing of my mom friend's invitation and this suspicion felt almost orchestrated. So, I decided to attend the trial session to investigate further. That day, my friend and I left our children in the daycare center within the facility and headed to the venue we were interested in. The event promised a relaxing experience, an hour of hot yoga followed by access to the hot springs. Before the session started, the company's CEO was going to give a greeting, and I thought, perfect. This is my chance to see him up close. I seized the opportunity and took a seat in the front row, right in the center, where I could see the man clearly. There he is, the guy from TV. He appeared before the participants and stood directly in front of me. The moment he faced the audience, our eyes met. I didn't miss the slight twinge of his expression. After breaking eye contact, he nervously started fidgeting with his right middle finger's nail. There's no doubt about it, it's Diego. He's here. As soon as I was convinced, forgotten emotions began to well up inside me. But they weren't feelings of joy or relief that he was alive. Isabella and I suffered for 3 years, and you've been blessed with a beautiful wife, adorable children, and success as a businessman? Give me a break. I was surprised at how I could feel this way about someone I once loved. Over the past 3 years, it seemed I had become a much colder person than I thought. You left me with debts and caused Isabella so much pain. You must have had a delightful 3 years. Enough is enough. From that point on, I had no hesitation. I contacted the administrative scrivener and lawyer who had previously helped me, and I bravely made a call to a certain agency. A few weeks later, a man showed up at my parents' house with a furious expression. As soon as he saw me, he yelled, "What the hell did you do?" It was Kyle, the CEO of that sports facility. "And you are?" I asked, deliberately acting unaware. Kyle's eyes narrowed in anger. "Don't play dumb."
It's Diego. Your husband. You can't pretend to forget after everything.
My husband disappeared 3 years ago, and you look completely different. Although I was just stating the facts, he glared at me with frustration. Since it was getting nowhere, I reluctantly decided to steer the conversation. "What do you want from me now?" With a sigh, I asked. Diego's face showed a mix of awkwardness and lingering anger. I was relieved that my parents and daughter were out at this time. If Isabella had been here, it would have been a disaster.
It was you, wasn't it? You set them on me. Why else would they come after me now? You were supposed to be the guarantor.
I thought, this is the very definition of shameless. So you admit you tried to saddle me with the debt. But too bad, it won't work that easily. 3 years ago, when I was being chased by creditors, I consulted a lawyer who legally proved that I, who had been made a guarantor without my consent, was not obligated to repay the debt. After that procedure, the creditors stopped pursuing my daughter and me. But did the creditors simply give up? Honestly, it was quite a risk. There was always the possibility you were someone else entirely. But contacting them was worth it. They thoroughly investigated. I had contacted the creditors who had once tormented me, betting that they were still looking for my husband. I informed them that he was now an entrepreneur, operating under a different name.
Because of your meddling, they came to collect. They said I owe 3 years' worth of interest. $200,000 is absurd. They told my wife and child everything.
And? What do you expect me to do now? We are strangers. By this time, my marriage to Diego had already been legally dissolved. The condition for dissolving a marriage due to a partner's disappearance is 3 years. So, in this third year of his disappearance, I filed for dissolution of marriage and waived all inheritance. Now you can officially marry your new wife. That was always your goal, right?
Don't be ridiculous. I was kicked out of the house.
It seemed his new family had had enough of him, but that was no concern of mine. I heard your wife was originally a yoga instructor. She inherited a substantial amount of money from her wealthy parents and decided to start a business. You met at a seminar, right?
How do you know all that?
Who knows? I had heard all of this from the creditors.
Thanks to your information, we got him. We'll take every last bit of his assets.
They were saying some dangerous things, but I didn't care. Are you going by Kyle with your new wife? Using a fake name is risky. I hope you won't get sued for fraud. I figured he was being pressured from all sides and was in quite a predicament. Despite his yelling and complaining, he never laid a hand on me, likely to avoid the police. Even in such a situation, he remained that cautious. Was the idea to create a complex with a daycare yours or your wife's?
What?
Caught off guard by my sudden question, he let out a strange noise. Strangely enough, I remembered a conversation we had in the past. At the time, many parents at the nursery where I worked were concerned about their children not getting enough exercise, and I mentioned this at home. If they could easily drop off their kids and exercise, it might help them refresh. The words I casually said back then had been directly reflected in the sports facility my husband had started. Even though he had disappeared after saddling me with debt, Diego's cunning still amazed and infuriated me. Anyway, there's nothing I can do for you. There's no way such a lie could last forever.
Damn it. I was so close to having it all. You ruined everything.
He muttered to himself for a while but then began to laugh quietly, turning a creepy smile toward me.
Well, if it's been exposed, there's no helping it. Fine. I'll just run away again using the same method. This time, I'll do it better.
In the end, he said something like that, showing no sign of remorse. Instead of deceiving people and running away, why not work and live honestly? I felt pity for my husband who had lost his sense of decency and tried to advise him, but it seemed nothing I said would reach him anymore.
Shut up. I've never worked under anyone. I'd rather die alone than be employed by someone now. You, an ordinary person, wouldn't understand.
What did you even come here for? Just to complain? If you're done, you can leave, Kyle. Someone's here to pick you up.
Huh? Who?
At that moment, the front door burst open, and several men stormed in. They didn't look like ordinary people and quickly surrounded Kyle. When my husband came to my house, I had already called the creditors over. As soon as one of them grabbed his arm, Kyle's face turned pale, looking at me with a mix of pleading and anger.
You bastard. You did it again. No, help me. I'm Kyle. I'm not Diego.
It's pointless. They've been listening to our entire conversation from the doorway. You're already exposed. His words were incoherent, and he was in a complete panic.
Please, I beg you. What's going to happen to me? I could be chopped up and sold overseas. Won't that make you feel guilty? I still have a young child.
My brow furrowed when he mentioned child. A child? Whose? Isabella's father is gone. Oh, you mean your new wife's child? I feel sorry for them, but there's nothing I can do.
You heartless. You monster. No, I'm sorry. Help.
He insulted and apologized in turn, truly a busy man. Heartless is fine by me. I gave him the coldest look I ever had in my life. Better to die than to be employed by someone, right? At that signal, the creditors dragged him away. 3 days later, one of the creditors kindly came to inform me of the resolution. My husband had been sent to do dangerous work on a fishing boat overseas, arranged through their connections. I wasn't told the details, but they said,
There's no guarantee of his safety, but he'll earn high wages. He won't return to normal society again.
The $30,000 for my emotional distress from Diego would be paid from those wages, so I could only hope he survived. After that, I steadily built trust and achievements in my new job, and I'm now serving as a head childcare worker from this fiscal year. My daughter, now in 3rd grade, has made even more friends and is brighter than ever. How did you find this story? Please remember to subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.